Welcome everyone to the new edition of the Myles High Pod. This is Myles Monroe Jr, your host, and I want to thank you for joining me today. As you know, the goal and vision for this pod, as always, is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right, and I'm going to keep repeating this quote, and it's become a mantra for this platform, right? And it's something that I'm repetitive about because I'm serious about trying to create a culture with this platform and with everything that I do of continuing to better ourselves, continuing to elevate beyond our fears, elevate beyond our doubts, because our fears and our doubts will only limit us from achieving the goals and the purpose that we have for this life. So I want to make sure that we're consistently bettering ourselves and developing ourselves on a daily basis. And that's why I continue to repeat that mantra, okay? And hopefully at some point, as you listen to me during this pod, you'll be able to repeat that with me, all right? So we got a very special pod today. I know I've been promising this for quite some time, but the day is finally here. We have our second guest on the pod, and I am excited because I've finally gotten my wife on the pod.
Begrudgingly, I'm here.
I've had to bribe her with food, guys. It has been a task, but food is the way to her heart.
That's the truth.
So I have been cooking many meals for this day to finally be here. But my wife is here joining me on the pod today, and I wanted to use this pod just to talk about relationships in general, but more specifically our relationship and how we have developed to this point and how I want to continue to develop our relationships and kind of give you some insights on that. So I want to first of all, welcome, baby.
Thank you for having me. I'm always here. I'm just on the other side.
Yeah, she is finally actually on the couch.
Yes.
So she's sitting here with me. For those of you listening, so you're going to hear her voice a lot more often, a lot more clearer on this episode. And for those of you watching on all the video platforms, you're actually getting to see her sit on the couch now. But thank you guys for tuning in, whichever platform you're using. So I want you to just go ahead and introduce yourself. Give a brief introduction of yourself. So like let's say, like, you know, where were you born? Let's give a little bit about your family history, a little bit about your education, your professional life, stuff like that. Let's give people some insight to you.
So again, my name is Sherice. I was born and raised in the Bahamas, Nassau, but I also have Jamaican roots. I am the fourth of 5 children, so I'm the youngest girl. I studied in the Bahamas, of course, at Catholic High School, Aquinas College, go Aces. And then after that, I ventured over to the College of the Bahamas, which is now the University of the Bahamas. And I studied journalism and mass communications. And then from there, I transferred to New York City, one of my favorite places in the world, one of our favorite places in the world.
Absolutely, that's the hometown, by the way.
And there, I went to the City University of New York, Brooklyn College, campus, BK, and I studied television and radio production. So I've always wanted to be in the journalism, writing, production, media field, and I continue to do that. But what was so special about the time that I went off to New York was that was the beginning of the blogging and social media era. So I think I was really positioned to be where I am at that time now, because I was able to learn early on the benefits of social media, and I started my blog, sheSoMajor.com, and it was one of the first blogs of its kind coming out of the Bahamas as a Bahamian, and I think we did really good things. It started off as a way for me actually to keep in touch with family and friends, to let them know what I was doing in New York. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do things that people back home found interesting. And so from there, I think the first entertainment news that I kind of reported was I was actually on the video set of a 50 Cent video, now that I remember. And I blogged that, and then from there the blog took on a mind of its own in entertainment and gossip, and we we had a team of people that just reported everything from news, entertainment, and I want to say we did a great job because we were everywhere. And that started my journey of writing and blogging and social media. And from there, it just took off into a life of its own and helped me get so many opportunities.
And then I know this, but your blog or your blogging evolved from that point.
Yes.
And you know, for context, you were doing that while you were in college.
I was.
As a hobby.
Yeah, it was a hobby.
Initially.
Led to many opportunities, but also led me to my first big job doing tourism, marketing, social media. So, you know, from there, it kind of transitioned into more of traveling because I did a lot of traveling. And a lot of people back then, I want to say before the Instagram traveling phase began, I started to document a lot of my travels because people were really interested in it. And I did
more so you wanted to show people how easy it was.
Yes, I wanted,
because there was a stigma of traveling, that, you know, traveling was super expensive.
Yes.
Especially traveling like across the Atlantic, like to Europe and those countries, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think people were also very afraid of solo travel. So my first solo travel trip was to Europe. I went to London and Paris, went to the Olympics, and I did it by myself. And a lot of people were very afraid to travel alone. They thought it was so expensive. And as Bahamians, we, you know, I don't want to say this, but, you know, sometimes we just stop at Miami. And I wanted to show people that you can go further. It's not expensive. It's probably the same amount as traveling to Florida. And I really wanted to showcase that. And I was able to showcase a lot of the trip hacks that I have in terms of getting low cost plane tickets, budgeting, transportation, and all of the things that you should know when you're traveling. So I think that was really popular because back then a lot of people weren't doing it. So, you know, even though I was happy documenting my travels, I did get burnt out, and I didn't enjoy my travels as much because it became more, instead of being a hobby, it became a job for me. And so I kind of, you know, put that on the back burner a little bit. I still do it, but during, you know, the Instagram phase, it got, you know, a lot of people started to do it. So I didn't really find that there was a need for me to continue doing it as much as I was.
I'm guessing that was because like you wasn't able to enjoy your trips more because you was more focused on like taking the shots and the videos that you needed to take as opposed to actually enjoying where you were. Exactly.
And if you know me, you know, when I commit to doing something, I commit to do it fully. So if I say that I'm going to document a trip to Greece or something, I'm going to be fully immersed in getting as much content as I can, showcasing it, video, writing. And for me, the balance for me wasn't there. And so I just wanted to really get back into enjoying my travels a little more. And so of course, I kind of
took a little break.
I did.
I guess you segued from travel blog, and now you're a new content blogger, right? Let's talk about your new content that you do.
Well, I don't know if it was new, more so that I just got more interested in my hair because so many people keep asking me, what products do you use? How do you do this? My kids, I need help. And I really kind of just took that on and said, you know what? This isn't too much work for me. It's not going to interfere in what I love doing, traveling. I can do this on the side. And so I really dived into fully teaching people or giving them tips and tricks on how to take care of their naturally curly hair. And I feel like I have gotten so much joy from doing that because I remember me being a teen or being, you know, back then we didn't have as many resources for natural hair. It is now not, you know, as difficult, but I still find that there are a lot of young girls who find it very difficult to take care of their hair. And it's not easy, to be honest. I know you see how long it takes me to fix my hair, and I only do a wash and go. And so I get a lot of parents hitting me up saying, you know, thank you so much for assisting us, and my daughter now wears her hair out, you know. And
that's the wild part, right? Because we'd be out somewhere and a mother would walk up and be like, hey, you're Sherice, she's so major, right? And she'd be like, yeah. And he'd be like, yeah, I just want to thank you. My daughter watches your videos, and she's so much more confident about wearing her hair. And it's like crazy to me, right? Because I'm like, and I'm a male, right? So we don't have much care to do with our hair, right? We just literally wet our hair, dry our hair, walk out the door, right? But it's just amazing how like young girls, I guess they don't want to take the time to, because it's a lot. It is a lot of work. The work that Sherice goes through, but the confidence that you're instilling and sharing with people, I think is amazing, especially when people come up to tell you about it.
Yeah, I think so, and it's something that I love to do. So I feel if I can help one person, I am doing a good job.
Sure. Well, that's a little bit about you, right?
Just a little bit. Just the tip of the iceberg.
I think the more you actually get to sit on the couch, the more we'll dive into like different aspects of those transitions, because there's a lot of stories behind a lot of her blogging transitions, and some funny stories as well. I think it would be good to share them at some point. Too. But our story. So Sherice and I have been friends from high school. So yes. I've known Sherice for a pretty long time. We have generally the same group of friends for years. So I'm talking like this is 25 plus years of friendships that she and I have with the individuals. Like the majority of the people that were at our wedding,
who stood in our wedding too,
like longtime friends that
from
we've
high school,
had.
and beyond.
Yeah, from like school, from her school, her friends, my friends, our friends together, obviously family and stuff. So we have a history on. We've been friends for a pretty long time, right? And it wasn't like anything, what's the word, romantic or whatever. It was like
we were platonic friends.
Yeah, we were like just straight friends. We would message each other a lot. This was, and obviously back in the day we was on MSN Messenger, right? So we kind of dating ourselves. MSN Messenger don't even exist. I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what MSN Messenger is.
Does it exist? You don't know what MSN Messenger is?
we have a Gen Z person in the crew. I'm sure he has no idea what MSN Messenger is.
You don't know the struggle of signing offline and back online just so someone can see that you're online.
Yo, we have been friends a long time. That's the point, right? And we shared a lot of commonalities, right? Yes. Look, she spoke about her travel blog. Travel is something that I love. If you've been listening to this pod, you know that I love to travel, and she loves to travel as well. So that's something that we shared with each other, right? And she loves fashion as well. I think both of us are very fashion conscious. We love music. We love sports. We love
food.
We're foodies. So we love to try. Well, I love to try new things, and I force her to try new things. Yes. And she understands that. Because I tell her all the time, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that she eats now that she wouldn't have eaten before.
I would have definitely not eaten oysters.
Continue to remind her, like, you will only like this now because of me.
Yes, absolutely.
So give me my props.
I give you your props.
Okay.
Give you your props.
I appreciate that. But no, we just had a lot of commonalities, and eventually like that. So, we went through high school years, college years, and then adulthood, right? And just, a couple of years ago, it just kind of evolved into a little more than friendship. One of us reached out to each other. I'm not going to say who.
Accounts may vary, but, someone reached out. Someone said, how's it going?
And it kind of turned into something a little more than friendship, and we started dating. And again, I think it was easy for us to build a relationship because we started with a friendship, and I think that's it's not possible all the time, but if you're able to start in a friendship, I think it makes it easier, right? Because you have already established a foundational relationship with that person, so evolving into a relationship probably wouldn't be that difficult.
No, and I think it's easier when you are friends with someone because you kind of skip certain steps, in my opinion, even though you still have to get to know each other in a relationship, because being in a friendship is different. So getting in a relationship with someone, even though you're friends, you still have to learn how your friendship coexists in that relationship. But I think it's definitely better to be in a relationship with someone who you are truly friends with.
So we got into a relationship. We started dating, became serious, and decided to become a little more serious about each other, and jumped.
How many years have we been together? Let me put you on the spot.
So
again, accounts may vary
because you have a different starting point than I do.
As most women do,
yes.
Usually.
but between 6 and 7 years, I think, right? 5 and 6.
No, babe.
What is it?
No.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, guys, we'll figure it out off camera.
We'll make those calculations and we'll come back.
We'll bring it back in part 2 for confirmation. But we started to date and became like, you know, super serious about getting to know each other on a more intimate level. You know, Sherice's background, her spiritual background is set in the Anglican faith.
Yeah.
And I am non-denominational, kingdom-based. So, you know, that alone was enough conversation for her and I to have. And I think...
Well, I think I've always been a pretty open person. Mm-hmm. So even though I had a strong Anglican faith, I was always open to your faith and mm-hmm. what that is, and learning, and not being, you know, kind of like, oh, I don't want to learn. Well, I don't know what that is. Yeah,
and I think that allowed us to develop our relationship, right? Because one of the things that I decided to ask Sherice to do is before we even got engaged, we took a pre-marital class, right? And I know that's not traditionally how it's done. Like usually folks would get engaged and then before the wedding, you go to a pre-marital class.
Which was new to me because I'm like, why are you asking me to go to premarital counseling and you ain't even give me no ring yet? Like, what's that about? So I was very annoyed about it. But I was like, you know, it's something new, I guess. I guess that's what they do at their church.
Yeah, and it's I've been learning, you know, so much about relationships and men and women, you know, obviously for the majority of my life, especially my adult life. And I just felt like that particular class would benefit us so much because, like, I think I had a good idea of your temperament and the type of person that you were. And like both of us are learners, right? We enjoy learning, enjoy continuing to learn and evolve as individuals. So I knew that going to this class would benefit, even if it didn't benefit our relationship, mm-hmm. it would benefit us as individuals.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to do it before, you know, I even thought about getting engaged because I just thought like it was a good step, and it was an important step to really focus ourselves on, you know, getting serious about taking that next step. Because I didn't want it to be where we decided to get engaged and then maybe went through the class and discovered some differences that we had, and it just, you know, wouldn't work out, right? So, you know, I maybe it doesn't work for everyone, but, you know, I would say even before you get engaged, do some marital classes, like some pre-marital classes. I think it'll benefit you in the long run. And I'm not saying to do it with like every girlfriend you have, to my guys, or to the ladies, do it with every boyfriend that you have. But that one that you have an idea that, you know, this could be the one, right? This is something that I want to kind of take seriously. I think exploring taking the pre-marital class even before the engagement is a good decision to make.
I agree, and I think it's very unconventional because, of course, people get engaged and then they do the counseling, which is, in my opinion now, a little backward because marital counseling asks those hard questions that mm-hmm. some people don't want to answer while in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think going through that class and, you know, just witnessing what we witnessed, it was like, okay, I think we made the right decision because it was, you know,
absolutely. You know, we learned a lot, right? Because we learned a lot about each other's love language, mm-hmm. for instance. Like what I thought was Sherice's love language wasn't her love language, right? And I got to really understand and learn what her love language actually was going through that class. And the same for her.
Yeah, and I think for you, I don't even know if I really was thinking about love languages at the time. So I think I knew about it, but I didn't really think to apply it to our relationship at that time.
But it explained a lot, right? Especially like with the differences that we had, or the, let's call them disagreements that we may have mm-hmm. at times, right? It kind of explained why those would happen because we started to understand like how each other relates mm-hmm. On an individual level. So we brought that into our relationship and just getting a better understanding, her of me and me of her, from a loving, like how to love her aspect. It really helped me. We also learned there was a budgeting. So this marriage class, it was like
12 weeks,
like a 12-week, 16-week class, something like that. You met once a week. It was a pretty long class, but Sherice is a very, like I say, she loves to learn, right? And she's a very traditional learner. So, and she's like super old school, right? So I knew that.
Me old?
No, you're just old school. She was raised by old people. So she's she's traditional at heart. So I knew that eventually in this class, like she would start to love it just because of the information that was going to be shared. And like, sure enough, like we got through the class and we actually both were looking forward to the class each week. And it was like, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 hours or maybe 3 hours. It wasn't more than 3 hours a week for a day. And we learned so much, right? We learned about budgeting. We talked about, what else did we talk about? I learned, I knew, so my dad always did this teaching on men and women and how they understand, right? So men are logical creatures, women are emotional creatures. And you know, I'm the type of person, like I'm a man of my word, right? Logical, right? If I tell you I'm going to do something, tell you I'm going to be somewhere or whatever, I'm going to be there. Like you can guarantee it.
I want to say it's a very good attribute, but it can also become very annoying because if Charo tells you something or you tell him something and you don't do it, it's like, give me a break.
Right. So that actually became an issue for us like earlier on, right? Because we would have a conversation, like I would tell Sherice something and she would agree, right? We'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. 5 minutes later, it'll be like we never had that conversation and she'd be like, yeah, I just changed my mind, right? And I'd be like, change your mind? Like we already had a conversation, like why are you changing your mind? And I always knew that women were emotional creatures, but it took reminding me through this marriage class, right? And understanding that, you know, because it was said verbatim. And I've heard this a lot too, because my dad did a lot of teachings on marriage and relationships and stuff. But like if a woman makes a decision today in this hour, 5 minutes from now, that can be a totally different decision, because the decision that she is making is based on how she feels at that particular moment. Now, this may not apply to all women. Like I don't want to generalize anything, but for the most part, right? This is how like most women communicate and how they operate, right? And Sherice was like that. Like she would feel a certain type of way, make a certain type of decision in one breath, and then the very next breath is an entirely other decision. And
ain't nothing wrong with changing your mind.
Yeah, but it took me learning that, yes. Right? Because that, like I say, I'm a stickler for keeping your word. And if you tell me you're going to do something, or tell me you're going to, whatever it is that we agree on, like my expectation is you're going to do it or keep to it, because I'm going to, come with that same energy.
I agree, but I also think it has more to do with you are a very disciplined person. And when you make a decision, that's the decision. I'm totally opposite. I'm very creative, and sometimes, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So it's like, I don't think I want to do what I told you, and it can become an argument, a stern conversation. So I think it's all about learning your partner, like you saying, basically knowing that she probably made that decision because she was in an emotional state, sure. But I'm not going to hold her to it.
So I eventually got to that, right? I started to learn, like, even like now, like when we say things and like she would like make a decision or make a statement, I'd be like, yeah, but you'll feel differently in a couple of minutes. So I'm not going to hold you to that, right? I say it jokingly, but it's just me saying, like, I understand like the type of person that you are and how you communicate and how to, kind of gauge how committed she may be to a decision, as opposed to like, a day from now, a week from now, or the sorts. And I think this premarital class helped us out with that.
I agree. And I think for us, our communication has always been very good. Like there's nothing we don't say, there's no stone we don't leave unturned. And I think that has helped our relationship since day one. And I think that is one of the most important things in a relationship is communication.
Yeah. And then also I think one of the most, a good principle we learned in the class, they spoke about submission, yeah. Right? And there's this verse in the Bible.
But there's this negative connotation to submission in today's relationships and marriages. And even you once told me, you said, I didn't think you were open to the idea of submitting. And I'm like, you have to be worthy to have someone submit to you, in my opinion.
Fair.
Not that you weren't worthy, but I'm saying a lot of the arguments that come out in today's society, relationships, Twitter or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm not submitting, but it's like, are you a person worthy of my submission?
And I think because you're a very strong-willed person.
I am a strong, independent Black woman that don't need a man for nothing.
Okay, let me say something. I'm glad you said that. Gentlemen, look at me, please. Listen to my voice. These women that say that they are strong and independent and don't need a man for anything, that is a bold-faced lie, all right?
Not a lie.
It's an emotional statement that they're feeling at the time. And I'm sure that there's truth to it, but there's like, it's a two-way street, right? And I understand that maybe the type of, they're talking, maybe they don't need a particular type of man, right? They want a man that's purposed, that's focused, that's disciplined. Like, those are character traits that, most women would probably submit to. And I think society has tainted the relationship, right? And between male and female, and how women should submit to men and how men should love women, right? Because that's what the Bible tells us to do.
Stick a pin in it. The Bible also said that you're supposed to submit to each other. So it's not just women submitting.
So I'm going to get there. I'm just setting it up. Okay. Yes. So whenever people discuss like women submitting to men, right? Like that's actually from the Bible. And people like kill this verse, right? Ephesians 5, verse 22. It says, Wives, submit to yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. And then for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior, right? So essentially it's focusing on women just submitting themselves to the wife, right? There's a verse literally right before that, right? So that was,
they conveniently leave out.
Yeah, that was Ephesians 5:22, right? But verse 21 says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So the first statement that was made was both the husband and the wife submit to each other in reverence for the foundation, or which should be the foundation of the relationship, right? Which is Christ. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that, right? And I understand that, yes, wives should submit themselves to their husbands, but that doesn't mean to be a slave to your husbands, right? It just means to submit to their leadership, their vision, their purpose for the family, right? And that comes, like I say, with a man that's focused, with a man that's purpose driven, with a man that has a vision for the wife and his family and what he's trying to build with her, right? And then it goes on to say, now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit their husbands in everything. And in verse 25 it says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. And in this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. And that's another thing that they leave out, right? So it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church. And then further on down it says, husbands, love your wife as you love yourself, right? And I think sometimes we as men forget that just as I love and take care of myself, and we're conscious of it, we're supposed to have that same consciousness when we're loving our wives. Agreed.
And I think that if you understand the entire verse in its totality, I don't think the submission should be an issue. I mean, that's just me, though. I can't speak for every...
Bars.
You can't speak for all women.
No, and I mean, like I say, I think it's based. It's not just like, this like a man that isn't focused, isn't purpose filled, isn't disciplined. A wife or a woman should automatically submit to him. Like you have to bring structure to that unity, right? And provide a level of comfort, a level of protection, a level of safety for your wife to make it easy for the submission to happen.
Agreed, because I don't think any woman wants to lead a family. You know, no one wants to lead, no one wants to do all of these things, and then you're saying you're supposed to submit to me. I mean, that just don't make no sense to me.
So if you have an opportunity, I want to encourage you to read Ephesians 5, 20. Read this entire passage from 21 to 31. Right. I think it's a great foundational message for a relationship, especially if you're thinking about jumping into marriages. And so with this premarital seminar, I think this also taught us that we, like Sherice and I, have made a decision to always invest into our relationship. Yep. You know, so we talk all the time. We read books and discuss them together. We watch teachings together and discuss the teachings. Like, we're always communicating to build both of ourselves up. So we build ourselves up individually, and then we build ourselves up within our relationship, because I think that's something that is it's important, right? Because you don't want to just, you know, kind of get into a relationship, decide to marry this person, get married, and then everything stops, right? The growth and development doesn't stop. The learning doesn't stop. You know, my dad says that, well, the Bible says, and my dad did a great teaching on this, that in all you're getting, get understanding, right? And for every aspect of life, especially in relationships, right? Love doesn't keep a relationship together. Commitment doesn't keep a relationship together. Understanding keeps relationship together. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So gaining knowledge, and that's something that both of us are committed to. Like, we attend seminars. We continue to build our relationship. We travel together. We make time for ourselves. We want to continue to build our relationship because it's important, and it's something that she and I are intentional about, right? Like, she asks me all the time, like, you know, when these kids come along, like, are we still going to have date night? Are we still?
Well, yeah, because I want to say, you know, we could sit here, we're newlyweds, and people can say, oh, y'all ain't gone through nothing yet. Yeah. You know, but we are ensuring that by the time certain things hit us, we are totally prepared for it, which is why we read. This is why we invest in going to marriage classes or seminars, because
listen to CDs,
yeah, we want to be prepared DVDs for these things.
We actually attended a marriage seminar recently, you know, and like I say, it's something that we did, and we actually enjoyed it, right? Because, like I say, Sherice is a learner, and I love to learn. So any information that we're able to get that helps us as individuals, and then also allows us to help our relationship, I think it's great for us to do, and it's important for us to do, and we actually enjoy doing it. And in this particular seminar, like, we discussed communication, right, and how important communication is, and it talked about the five levels of communication. I think for level 1, it's the casual conversation. Level 2 was the reporting of facts.
1 second.
Level 3 was expressing ideas.
Yeah, it's casual conversation, reporting the facts, expressing ideas, opinions, decisions with specific intent to be heard and understood, sharing emotions, and the 5th level of communication would be complete emotional and personal communication with absolute openness and honesty.
Right, and so leaving that seminar, like, we internalize those levels of communication. So, like, Sherice would poke fun at me, like, in certain conversations that I have.
Like, if he says something to me, I'm like, oh, you're at a level 1.
Operating at a
level 1. You're not communicating
right now,
at 5.
You know, so it's just like we try to keep it fresh, try to keep it engaging for both of us, right? This learning process, it's never ending. Sherice is, you know, the person that she is today isn't going to be the person that she is 365 days from now. And as she evolves, I want to evolve myself individually, and I want our relationship to continue to evolve as well. So I want to encourage you, if you're in a relationship, thinking about getting serious and jumping into a marriage, premarital classes are awesome. You can try to find one at your local church or your local in your local community. I think with a therapist. Or with a therapist, yeah. A spiritual father for either of you, and just make sure it's like mutually something both of you want to do. Like one thing I never wanted to do was force Sherice to do anything. So I wanted to make sure
I'm not the type to be forced either.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that she was on board just as much as I was on board, because I knew eventually, in the long run, it'll be beneficial to the both of us. And any recommendations for folks in a relationship? Because I know, like I said, you started or you came up under Anglican background, and I'm non-denominational and kingdom-based. And I think I mentioned this before, that even the way that we speak and the way, like, my faith is much different than my wife, and that has everything to do with the way that I was brought up, right? But my faith wasn't always like this, right? I had to get to this level, and it took me learning from those that were around me, the strongest influence being my dad, and just seeing how strong his faith was, and understanding how we're not supposed to be warriors, right? We're just supposed to be focusing and seeking the kingdom of God. So I knew that I know that Sherice is going to be able to build her faith, because we're going to be doing it together, right? And I'm going to be pushing her to test her faith and to step outside of her comfort zone. But with that being said, right, and the differences in our spiritual upbringing, like what's like something that you would recommend to like couples that may have similar backgrounds like you and I, and they're trying to come together and make decisions in a union, but just being from different spiritual backgrounds?
Well, I think the most important part is you have to be open to wanting to learn something different, and it can't be, well, I'm right, you're wrong. It has to be constant communication. It has to be a willingness to learn something new. Because for me, I'll be honest, I was never a kingdom person. I lived here all my life, but I couldn't tell you what happened inside of BFM. I really couldn't, because I was an Anglican, and we're very, 1, 2, 3. This is how it goes. We genuflect. We take our communion. We go home, and so many of the things that you guys do was very strange to me, like very strange. But I was always willing to learn more. My hunger for knowledge was always there, and so I would ask you these things. I wouldn't judge. I would just look and decide and study, and then oh, it's not so bad. I understand. And you just continue to learn and build on that. And if you really want to understand what someone is going through, you'd be fully open to their faith and their beliefs. And
like I said, like, she and I like listen to my dad all the time. We read, like, so a good example would be like the premarital class that we did. It goes heavily. It's based heavily on a book that my dad wrote, and it's called The Purpose and Power of Love and Marriage. If you have an opportunity, if you haven't read that book before, I encourage you to get that book. It's available on our website, and I'm not just saying this to get sales. Like, I truly believe like it's an important book that every person in a relationship should read, especially if you're thinking about getting into a marriage, because it just teaches so much principles that have been able to help Sherice and I, and I'm sure it'll be able to help you. But it's available on our website, monroeglobal.com, and the name of the book is The Purpose and Power of Love and Marriage, and that was a very important book. And then those 5 levels of communications, like those were derived from a book called The Marriage I Always Wanted by Gary Chapman. That's a great book as well. And like I say, Sherice and I always, like, we're continuously trying to gain knowledge, right? Because knowledge is what's going to allow us to grow together and to be committed, continue to want to be committed to each other, right? The information that we receive, and making wise decisions, being able to apply those that knowledge and that understanding to our lives and to our relationship. So I want to encourage you, if you're able to pick up those 2 books in particular, and then any information you can get on relationships, on marriages, on understanding men and women, understanding how to raise a family. Like, all of these things are important when you're getting into getting serious about getting into a relationship, and you're talking like marriages and kids and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I also want to make mention of that even though you're in a relationship, another good tip, or a marriage, another good tip is to maintain your individualism, because you don't want to solely become someone else. You want to ensure that you're still paying attention to your wants, your needs, learning for yourself, so you can bring that to the relationship. I think that's very important, so you don't lose yourself in a relationship. You still have your things that you love to do. I still have the things that I love to do. We give each other that space that we need to grow our relationship.
And that's important too, right? Like, I don't want to force Sherice. Like, I never try to force her to like what I like, or to be into the things that I'm into. And that even took a learning process for me, right? I had to understand that I had to allow her space and her individuality within this relationship, because my dad actually gave a good point on like what alone means, right? And being alone. Like, alone doesn't mean like you're an individual that's 50% full and you're waiting for someone else to come and like make you whole or fill you up, right? Being alone is being all that you could be in one person, right? So like when Adam was in the garden, God didn't give Adam or bring Adam Eve or create Eve until he saw Adam in his full-fledged in his purpose, like living in the garden, working in the garden. He gave him work to do. Adam was working. And then God said, man, it's not good for this man to be alone. Like, it's not good for him to be all in one, right? Be everything that he is and not have someone there to assist him. So being alone doesn't mean like you're lonely, right? Being alone means like you're complete in the individual that you are. And adding someone to that is adding another whole person to that union. And I think that continues to build it. So these are things that Sherice and I continuously talk about, continuously remind ourselves about as we grow in our relationship. I just wanted to use this time just to kind of talk about, like, you know, how we've grown in our relationship, coming from like different spiritual backgrounds and different backgrounds, period. And you know, I've seen her; she's grown so much further from, you know, where she was when we first met, and I have as well, right? Like, she can tell you like the growth that we both have experienced individually has been one of the reasons why we've been able to be so strong together in our union. Yeah,
and I think when couples, they date, I think they have to pay special attention to their spiritual life. You know, what does God mean to you? Do you pray together? Do you read together? Do you worship together? Do you have the same, you know, likes and differences? Like, talk about these things, because we have spirited debates. Just because I more so kingdom now doesn't mean that I still don't have those debates about being an Anglican, or what an Anglican was, or how they are so similar but also how they are so different. So I think it's good to just really always communicate again. It all comes back to communication. That's
the most important thing. Communication, and then information, like getting understanding and ensuring that you're continuing to learn your partner as you both grow individually, ensuring that you're able to grow in the relationship as well. Yep.
Absolutely.
So, babe, thank you for being on this pod.
Thank you for having me. I'm ready for a hot meal.
I do order a meal now.
But it was good being here.
This is something that I want to do again, and I promise you we won't just talk relationships on this pod.
Absolutely.
When you're on.
Absolutely.
We'll dive into a lot more other things, because, you know, I think you have a lot of good experiences as well that you can share with the audience. So thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
Any last words? Anything you want to share? Want to leave?
My last words is I love my husband.
I love you too, my love. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Seriously, thank you for. I think this is going to help. Leave some comments under wherever it is, whatever platform you're watching this particular episode.
Okay. I also want to say something. Okay. Even though we might be giving advice to people, everyone's different. Yes. So what works for us may not work for another couple. So my advice to you is find what works for you, because, you know, again, our recipe for success may not be someone else's recipe. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure, let everybody know what works for us may not work for someone else.
Disclaimer, guys.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Disclaimer. And it's just us giving our experience and our advice, right?
Yes.
And I think the key principle that we want to teach is to ensure that you're continuing to get information, right? And then you decipher through the information, like what works, what you want to try in your relationships, and kind of decide which path you want to take, because everyone's path is different, like
absolutely.
Sherice said, for sure. All right. Well, this brings us to the segment of milestone for this particular pod. This is a segment where I want to share a piece of information that you can take and apply to your daily lives. And today's milestone is like super simple, right? It comes from the good book, James 1 verses 19. And in a nutshell, I just want to leave you with this phrase: be quick to listen, be slow to speak, be slow to anger. Be quick to listen, be slow to speak, and be slow to anger. I think that many relationships could be saved, could be reconciled, and could grow if people take heed to this advice, to these words, to this particular verse. And I just want to leave that with you. We've been discussing relationships with this pod, and even with Sherice's and I relationship, like I feel like my adherence to this verse in particular has really helped us, right? Because I could be a bit aggressive and boisterous at times, but being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger has really helped us. And I just want to extend those words of advice to you in hopes that it'll help you as well. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode for this particular pod. I want to thank my wife, Sherice, for joining us. Babe, how would you share for our listening audience, let's share your social media information, just so that they can, stay in touch with you, with your blogging or your vlogging. Where can they find you on social media?
You guys can find me on YouTube at She's So Major, Facebook at She's So Major, TikTok, I'm at TikTok too, at She's So Major, as well as Instagram at She's So Major. Across all channels. For
those of you watching, we're going to put that on the screen just about right here in this area for you guys to ensure that you stay in contact with, or get in contact, or keep in contact with Sherice and myself and everything that we're doing. All right. Well, as you know, the purpose and vision for this pod is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. Until next time, you guys stay blessed.